Hello everyone. Welcome to the webinar Get More Passengers on Board with Real-Time Passenger Information. My name is Urša Hribernik and I'm the head of mobility at LIT Transit, a global transit technology provider. We are very thrilled to have you on board. Please place comfortably and get yourself a big cup of coffee or tea and let's get started. Let us embark on a journey of real-time passenger information. And our first stop is LIT Transit. LIT Transit is a global technology solutions provider to public transport operators and authorities. Its advantage is that it, on one hand, provides world-class technology to the cities with the best city transport in the world, such as Singapore and Hong Kong, and on the other, support operations in countries with less organized traffic patterns, such as Nigeria, Mexico, and India. Our mission is to help you reimagine your public transport. With this intention in mind, we also organize this webinar today, and we will give you answers such as how agencies are adapting to COVID-19 around the world, how you will boost your ridership while enhancing operational agility, how do you benefit from a multi-channel approach, how do you audit and improve ETA prediction accuracy, what role will passenger information have in gaining back trust, how the right system will ready you for future mobility travel. Today, we will stop in the world's fastest growing economy, India, cutting edge Singapore, and always welcoming Prague, where we will visit three senior industry experts who will share their experience and views on real-time passenger information. The first one is Vivek Ogra. He is partner government and public sector at PVC and leads the smart mobility practice in India. Vivek has more than 23 years of experience in designing smart mobility systems globally. Vivek works closely with government institutions and private mobility service providers to formulate policies and design for smart mobility systems with the focus on AI in transit. Our second guest is Gerald Ong, CEO and co-founder at Sweat Mobility. Gerald has an impressive track record in founding startups. With more than 13 plus years of experience, he's managing Sweat Mobility, on-demand mobility startup supported by the major players in the industry such as NEC Corporation, Toyota Mobility Foundation, and others. Our third speaker is Radek Novotny, CEO of About Me bus operator in Prague. He has extensive experience with restructuring the public transport company in Prague and promoting also new strategy compliant with the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. Radek is a team leader and project manager for numerous public and urban transport projects focused on restructuring and outsourcing. So, we have just entered a new era. The last months have shown that real-time communication with passengers is crucial in such times. Changed routes, timetables, everyday new recommendations from the government for protecting passengers' health, new directions from the Transport Ministry, all this brought awareness that direct link with passengers in public transit is crucial. With decreased numbers of passengers using public transport, real-time passenger information is gaining attention and will become even more crucial in the following months. Let me show you how you can gain back trust and get more passengers on board. Providing real-time updates and communication to your passengers will increase trust in your services. With accurate and reliable journey time predictions, you will be able to majorly improve passenger satisfaction. Decreased wait times of your passengers on the stations will keep your passengers safe and minimize spread of the disease. Easily accessible information at all stages of the journey will enable you to gain new passenger segments and improve experience of the existing customers. Let's check that more into detail. Real-time updates will have to be transparently communicated to your passengers in an innovative way. Here on the right-hand side, we use low-energy e-paper displays, papercasts that run on a very powerful and easily editable content management system. You can quickly prepare the updates and push it all across the entire display network. You can, for example, encourage your passengers with daily stats and smileys if they performed well. You can inform your passengers about news, new regulations, or guidelines they should follow. The real-time data feeds enable you to provide your passengers accurate and reliable journey time information. And last but not least, lately we all heard a lot about occupancy measures. With automatic passenger counters on board, you can also display relatively good estimations of vehicle occupancy. Now, let me present you our industry-leading plug-and-play journey time prediction engine, LIT Predict. It serves cities with the best transport in the world, Singapore and Hong Kong, providing their citizens with very attractive transit experience and high passenger satisfaction. Irrelevant of your vehicle data source or format, as you can see it on the left side, LIT Predict will take care of very accurate and stable journey time predictions along the route, in real time and in open data format. It improves the information quality at all stages of the journey and generates arrival, departure, and travel times that can be easily disseminated across multiple channels. The accurate journey time predictions of LIT Predict enable passengers to plan their journey more efficiently and don't let them wait on a bus stop. This can reduce unnecessary exposure in public places and risk of infection. Also, operators and authorities can benefit from journey time accuracy and can better plan their service. Especially important this becomes nowadays with on-demand services that link to current public transport. New mobility providers require accurate and reliable journey time information to efficiently plan their services and decrease waiting times. Now I'm addressing these questions to all the transit agencies and operators that are with us today. So have you ever asked what is your journey time accuracy? How stable are your predictions? LIT Predict can help you evaluate your journey time accuracy by stops, routes, trips, visually, and take your service to the next level. Let me show you how. Multi-channel approach linked to new mobility services will also boost your ridership. LIT Inform, our passenger information system, integrates all the relevant data feeds and disseminates them across all channels that represent different stages of passenger journey. From passenger and web application to various kinds of displays, announcements, and Wi-Fi. Established connection to new mobility providers will take care of the first and last mile bridges and bring you even more happy passengers. And let me introduce you our agenda for today. All our journey guides will give us a short introduction on the real-time passenger information initiatives and best practices, and then we will deep dive into discussion. In the end, I'm sure you will have plenty of questions, and we will have a couple of minutes dedicated to answer them. Now I would give the word to Vivek. So Vivek, please go ahead.
Appreciate it. So thank you, friends. And first of all, let me thank Ursa for inviting me for this webinar. It's so nice to be here and listening to different views globally, and it really helps me to form up a global viewpoint. So just to talk about a little bit about what we do with the PwC in smart mobility in India. I lead the practice. Could we go to the next slide, please? I lead the practice, and the central idea of our practice is that our thinking in the cities, as far as mobility is concerned, has to change from vehicle-centric thinking to a people-centric thinking. Anything that we do within smart mobility, any kind of work that we deliver for our clients, is centered around people, because we firmly believe unless we design systems for people, we will never be able to provide for efficient services in cities. Uh, Second important thing is that mobility, as we see it today, has become a very important link to social and economic development of cities. While our urban structures are changing continuously, there are new advancements happening in cities. What commonly links people to their opportunities, whether that is from social standpoint or from economic standpoint, is mobility. And hence, mobility needs to be user-centered. Anything that we design has to solve for people, not for vehicles. So for a very long time, globally, the focus was around vehicles, because vehicles would define how city would move. But now I think globally, the thinking is around people. As Ursa earlier said, how do we ensure we have happy people on our transit systems? So thinking around people is what we truly believe is the right way to go forward. Next step. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So if you really see what this slide provides you is an information in terms of as a focus group within PwC, what do we provide in transportation? We work with policy, technology, operations, governance areas, whether that is a city government, central government, or federal government, or private agencies. Oftentimes, we work with almost all of them to really give advice to deliver end-to-end services and solutions. Uh, we work on cooperative transformation in urban sector, urban transport sector. We call it urban push. Electric and NMT being important constituent of that. Big data in transport is driving the efficiencies and people towards public transportation systems. Uh, so real-time passenger information system is part of that. So we do feel very strongly that if on-demand transportation system has to truly succeed in cities, it is the right information for the right purpose delivered to the right person, which is going to be, deliver the right services. So looking at the value consulting area, we provide a lot of strong practice services around multimodal economics and operations. If you really see a conversation that we are having in cities today, it's not just about buses or metros. It's also about how people walk up to their point of interest as far as transportation system is concerned. This could be first mile, last mile, walkability in cities, and then you have multiple modes of transport that you take. So look at it holistically and bring about a frictionless, seamless transport experience through technology and otherwise. I think that's where the whole of value consulting comes in, and whatever solutions we are going to deliver, it is centered around people. So if we really see the big transformations or disruptions that we are seeing globally today, they're all centered around people. Whether we see the first mile electric systems, last mile electric systems, we look at passenger information system, it is centered around people, because uh, it's people who make transportation systems a reality. They will sustain because people want them to sustain, because people travel on them. More and more people shift from private to public modes, and hence public transportation systems becomes viable. And hence, strategies such as real-time information availability to people goes a long way in setting up the trust, service sustainability, and long-term, shifts towards public transportation systems. Next, next slide, please. So basically, this is just a short slide saying who benefits from the information which is provided in real time. For example, if we really look at the citizens or the transportation users, their benefit is that they have an enhanced travel experience. They are able to have a view of end-to-end journeys. Instead of looking at journeys in parts, they look at a frictionless experience of seeing from source to destination, a single point of view, a single viewpoint. There is reduced cost of travel, because in economies of scales environment where collaborative travels happen, the costs eventually are reduced. Per capita cost is reduced. Uh, you, you look at real-time information availability also increases the percentage of ridership. The probability of a person traveling in a public transportation system, just because that availability is accurate, availability of information is highly accessible. It is multi-channel, which Arsa was saying earlier. How do we ensure we reach out to the intended audience using multiple channels of communication? So that's about users. Then, if we really look at transport operators, their benefit is improved functionality through balanced supply and demand. You sweat your asset a lot, because you now know when, how, and for what purpose you want to sweat the asset. You're more efficient in resource management, because real-time information to passengers are derived from a lot of other data elements which work in the backdrop and ultimately deliver the right service for the right purpose. So similarly, if you look at city government's initiative is that the pollution indicators have to be lowered, lesser vehicles on the roads, public transportation vehicles ferry more people and move as many more cars from the streets, and hence lower investment in the roads, lower investment in the maintenance of the roads. So just to give you an example, we're working with one of the leading transport agency globally to look at how do we reduce road fatalities due to transportation system to zero in next 3 years, and reduce operating costs to 50%. Now, unless we have all of these real-time systems collaborating together, not just for the purpose of operations planning, but to deliver for every stakeholder in that system, we will not be able to achieve this. So the power of data and that power of real-time and accuracy of data goes a long way in achieving sustainability goals, fiscal measures that you want to take, and for solving for every stakeholder in that system. So that's what I would probably conclude with that, sir. Thank you. Okay, I think you can continue, sir.
Yes, just to unmute myself. Thank you, Vivek, for insightful presentation. We will talk more about people-centric approach and other benefits of real-time passenger information in the next couple of minutes. And now I would give the word to Gerald, who will take us on a journey with SWAT mobility. So Gerald, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just need permission to start sharing my screen.
Yes, of course. Here you have it.
Okay, thank you.
Does it work?
Yep. Works.
Okay, great.
I just have 3 quick slides to introduce myself. Can you all see it?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon or morning, everyone. My name is Gerald. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SWAT Mobility. We are a Singapore-based mobility startup, and we are backed by 2 of the largest public transport players in Singapore, which is ComfortDelGro and SMRT. So a quick intro about myself. I was born and raised in the city-state of Singapore. Ever since graduation, I've been drawn to the idea of tech startups. There's something magical about creating something from nothing. So that's kind of my background. About 5 years ago, I met my co-founder, Arthur Chua, who is also the group CEO of GoBell, which is the market share leader in commercial vehicle leasing. So with his deep domain knowledge in the mobility space, we started to build SWAT. So we really believe that efficient transport is a fundamental right. And our mission is to improve the way we commute and ease congestion that urbanization brings through the use of demand responsive technology. And our technology focuses on the following, high capacity pooling. Here we are not talking about pooling, just 2 or 3 people into a taxi. We are trying to get dozens of people into very big buses, right? That's kind of the whole idea. And also we focus on dynamic routing. So our system is able to actually adapt to different demand patterns and does not follow any fixed route. We also try to move passengers as efficiently as possible. And lastly, our system is designed to work with autonomous vehicles, right? So we hope they become ready very soon. SWAT was founded in 2015. We spent the first year building, launching, and operating Asia's first on-demand bus service, right? And we had the tagline, speed like taxi, price like bus. From the data and the operational experience we actually gathered, we were able to develop an algorithm that today holds several world records in the most well-known industrial benchmarks in this problem space. We then started working with governments like the Land Transport Authority of Singapore and the Transport for New South Wales in Australia, where we partnered them to deploy demand-responsive public transport services. We also noticed that most of peak hour travel is actually commuting, and we wanted to get closer to the source. So last year, we adapted our solutions for employee transport. We started working with large corporates and even industrial park developers in countries such as Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines to aggregate the demand to improve commuting for their employees. Okay, so that's a bit about our journey so far. Today, we have operations in around 6 countries, focused mainly in Asia, where we see some of the worst congestion. As you can imagine, solutions like ours cannot work without accurate real-time passenger information. Ride-hailing companies have definitely raised the bar for commuters, and we see that commuters are starting to have the same expectations for public transport. So thanks for having me here today, and I'm glad to be part of this discussion.
Thank you, Gerald. Really insightful presentation and good point that the passenger expectations have risen due to the on-demand services and new mobility providers, and that this will definitely reflect also on the public transit. So now let's go to our third speaker. Let's move to Prague to Radek Novotny, CEO of About Me. Radek,
good
will
morning.
you share the screen?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I will share my screen. Hopefully it works. Okay. So just brief introduction. We are a bus operating company working for public transport in Prague. Public transport in Prague is, I mean, maybe for whom you know the Prague, it's in the Middle Europe. There are 2 million people living. It's inside of the central Bohemian region. So there are another 1.5 million people commuting to Prague. So there are, for instance, more than 2,000 buses underground. Probably it's smaller than Singapore or some Indian cities, but still it's quite big for European scale. We are at a medium or small size operator. The biggest there is city transport company, and there are also other players. We operate 40 buses, 2 million kilometers annually. We are also basically now competing to expand our business to other cities. So for this, we also need or use this real-time information. We like to work with LIT. Basically, we are also implementing ETA and papercast panels. And on daily basis, we basically it's key to manage the operations. We are monitoring actually online the buses en route. Our dispatch controllers are having 24 hours access to this real-time information, so they really know what is happening there. Basically, we are responsible to the city, to public transport agency who is paying us for schedule adherence. So it's also quite important. It's the occupancy is more their business, but we all are dependent on it. But our responsibility is to be on schedule and basically also provide the capacity required. So we must know where are our buses, where we have also some issues which needs to be solved. And this is the daily usage of the real time. You can imagine. On top of that, we would like to move more for this passenger experience to provide ETA, which is on Czech market quite, let's say, it's not common. The standard here is the actual delay, which is provided on many levels, but the ETA is like step forward and increased quality for the passengers. So we like that we are able, together with also Ursa and her team, to get this ETA calculations and also ETA accuracies, so we can provide the proof that this ETA it has just necessary quality. And also quite important from this more practical point of view is complaints handling, because we are receiving complaints. Not everything is 100%. So if we need to know, for instance, whether really our bus was being there in on time or too late, everything is basically due to this technology available, and we can work with this also for the purpose of the quality of the passengers. So these are the existing real-time information usage for us at the moment. We hope also that we will let's say improve the service, and we will also expand the other opportunity in the future, like this multi-channel approach and another. So this is our experience. Thank you for having me there as a contact. If anyone needs to speak to me, and yeah, let's continue with the discussion. Rusa?
Thank you, Radek.
Okay,
insightful presentation. Like I think there will be even more applications of real-time passenger information once you also start with on-demand services and so on. And now let's move on with the discussion. I would start with Vivek. Vivek, with actually your impressive background in public transportation projects. So Vivek has more than 23 years of experience in project consulting in public transportation projects. Can you share how real-time passenger information becomes like important, or why is it important, and what were the projects where RTPI has proven beneficial? What is your experience?
Yeah, thanks, Arsha. See, as I said earlier also, I think real-time information about the service availability is a fundamental. I think I like the phrase that Gerald used, is a fundamental right in that sense, that users need to know when are they going to get this service to a particular destination. So real-time information fundamentally changes the user perception of the public transportation service. When we are looking at cities grappling with how do we ensure there is private to public shift, the modal shift happens. The first thing that would come to any user's mind is availability and accessibility of the service. Now, when we say availability and accessibility becomes the most important discussion when we look at getting our users to use the public transportation system, real-time information availability of when, what, and how does play the most important role as far as the service consumption is concerned. What we've seen in several cities in India, for example, Ahmedabad, Surat, there's several cities that we work with, like 35 cities in India. Real-time information availability across different channels, such as mobile apps where the journey planners are being delivered, passenger information system that's on the vehicles, of the vehicles and the stations, and elsewhere. With introduction of real-time information about the arrival of buses for a particular destination, departure of buses from a particular station, and so on and so forth, it has certainly led to more increased public transportation usage for a very simple reason. If this public transportation information was not available to people, they would generally tend to go on either a private mode of transport or an informal mode of transport in case of India, for example, auto rickshaws or others which are provided by an informal sector. Since public transport information is available, the mid-mile generally would be then traveled by them on the publicly available transportation system. Hence, it aligns with the larger motto of the cities to become more sustainable, in their approach of urban management.
Thank you, Vivek. And now, Gerald, you co-founded an on-demand mobility startup, as we heard it before, SWAT Mobility, almost more than actually 5 years ago. Can you share how you pivoted your startup? What was actually your initial product and how it evolved through time?
Sure. Thank you. So, when we started 5 years ago, on-demand was pretty new, and especially in Asia. So we launched and operated a B2C consumer service. The space was very competitive with, a lot of heavyweights like Uber and Grab. But, we gathered important data, operational knowledge to develop the algorithms that we have today. So with the increase in popularity of ride-hailing, many governments were exploring how newer demand-responsive technologies could be used in public transport. So we started working with the Land Transport Authority of Singapore and also Transport New South Wales, as I mentioned. And we were really looking at how we can tackle, problems mentioned by Vivek. These are first mile, last mile, and also looking at areas where ridership was actually very low, and it became very costly then to provide, service levels that, meet the standards that these commuters were looking for, right? So this was what we started doing. Then we also saw opportunity to work directly with the corporates, and we adapted our solutions. And this is also getting closer to our vision, right? So today we have built a mobility platform that already better matches demand and supply for employees. So we're looking at consolidating employees from different companies, pulling them together, and then optimizing at that layer, and then working with different supply providers to actually move these people very efficiently. So, we are getting closer to extending our vision to other verticals like non-emergency medical transport, the schools, logistics. Ultimately, we want to be able to aggregate the demand of the entire city, right? It doesn't have to just be a passenger, it could be a parcel. And just figure out what's the best way to move these things efficiently. Yeah, so that's kind of our journey, our story. So we pivoted from B2C to B2G, and now we're in B2B.
Great, a nice journey. And Radek, as the CEO of a bus operator in Prague, could you share how you benefit from real-time journey information? You mentioned it some points already. Maybe you have something to add, and how do you actually use it in everyday operations? Radek?
Mute. Okay.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. For those who are experienced with running bus operating company, you can imagine you dispatch every day, I don't know, maybe 20, 30, 100 buses. But you need to know that these buses were really leaving your garages and they are on routes. So it's the responsibility for dispatch controllers. And dispatch controllers, thanks to real-time information, they know that buses are there and they are on time or delayed, or they know what is happening. And they don't have to phone everyone, so it's actually very simple and efficient if that's working. So it's really on daily basis we use it 24 hours. So in this, even it sounds a little bit simplistic, but it's a big advantage for us to having this real-time information.
Great. So many agencies are introducing ways to assure measures for maximum occupancy of public transit vehicles. Some are introducing booking apps, the others are installing automatic passenger counters and displaying real-time occupancy information to displays and other channels. How do you think such challenges should be approached? What role will passenger information have in gaining back trust? So Vivek, go ahead.
Okay, interesting question. And honestly, this there is no one size fits all approach in that sense, because if you really see, uh, uh, different cities have different socio-economic fabric and also the maturity level at what they operate. So a solution that could possibly work with Singapore, with such a mature organization, LTA being on the backdrop of the planning and all those activities there, might not work similarly well in some of the South Asian countries or cities within Southeast Asia. So I think, but fundamentally, mobile platforms are bringing in a very different kind of opportunity to this whole transformation landscape. Uh, So some of the places where you could have passenger counters to really look at a number of passengers who have boarded or who have alighted from the vehicle. When has that happened? And should we look at comfort index to be provided to? So let me articulate it like this. There are different kind of travelers traveling within public transportation system, and each of this traveler has a different need. So just an example, you could have a mother traveling with a infant. You could have an old person traveling for a social purpose. You could have a business guy traveling for business purposes, or you could have kids traveling at the vehicle. Everybody has a different need of the service quality. Now, passenger counting and mobile apps could actually deliver a purpose-built decision-making platform to each one of these guys. And hence, consumption patterns can evolve very differently. So what I would say is that one, that every city provides a different opportunity. Whatever systems that we implement in our cities should focus on the DNA of that city. That's one. Second is the more and more focus on mobile-based platforms allows for alternate solutions to be built and integrated. For example, if we have self-ticketing opportunity on mobile, then fundamentally you know how many people are expected or how many people are there on the vehicle. You have location services on your mobile, get your location services to work for you. So those are different approaches. Or if you can't do that, where you have, let's say 50% mix of mobile enabled travelers and non-mobile enabled, feature phone enabled travelers, you have a passenger counter. So it depends what kind of city you're working with and what kind of maturity levels does a transportation service provide you. I hope I've answered it rightly here.
Yeah, definitely. Coupled with the people-centric approach, and yeah,
Yes.
definitely each persona has its own needs. So yeah, Gerald, do you have what's your view on that? So
Yeah, so I definitely agree with whatever they said. But for our system, at least the services we operate, it is a digital system. There's bookings. We know exactly the occupancy. So things we do have a bit more options. So we have been monitoring the situation closely in Singapore, and the government has said it's not possible actually for public transport to operate at half capacity. Firstly, the system cannot handle the volume. And secondly, lower ridership means lower fares. And of course, it's not sustainable in the long run. So the guidance now is for safe management instead of safe distancing to be used, which really means everyone on public transport has to wear a mask, mandatory. And of course, they have other measures like discouraging people from interacting with each other. So you're not allowed to talk to other passengers. So these are some of the things they've introduced. But in the meantime, while ridership has not returned to the pre-COVID levels, we have also adjusted all our services to operate at half capacity. So this is whenever we are doing optimization and planning, we will ensure that every passenger can sit a seat apart from the other passenger. And I think we're going to see more emphasis on preventing overcrowding in public transport. A lot of economies are opening up, and now only are we looking at addressing this situation. People, of course, find it very uncomfortable and even stressful to be in a very crowded bus with the whole pandemic happening. So I think being able to tell how full, how packed a vehicle is going to be something that real-time passenger information can do. It's going to be very important.
yeah, so real-time passenger information will be crucial in gaining back trust. And Radek, what's your view on what role will passenger information have in gaining back trust?
It's actually this occupancy issue and passenger information also for city and PTA is at the moment very important, because also bearing in mind the COVID situation, we really have like a lot of fare missing. It's more than 50%. So everyone is looking for cost savings. So even for reductions of public transport, which definitely will be painful for us, will be important to know what is the occupancy. So the occupancy will be the important decision maker factor, at least in this short term, and definitely goes to everything what the other guys said.
Okay, great. Yeah, occupancy is also relevant coupled with mobile, as Vivek mentioned before. This is definitely a way to go also to bridge the gap now in this new normal, let's say it, and to gain back people's trust. So Gerald, on-demand services were on the rise already before the COVID era. Did COVID boost the deployment of new on-demand services, and what are the challenges that you're facing in the on-demand market currently?
Sure. So, with the lockdowns, people definitely were moving less. Transport was not high on the priority list for many people. So definitely there's a lot of delays in some of the projects. But now cities are reopening, and we are seeing kind of a surge in activity, right? So with telecommuting and all these team arrangements, everyone is starting to relook at their transport arrangements, because the demand patterns have all changed, and whatever they did in the past, may not be efficient anymore, may not be the best way. So we are seeing quite a few new opportunities. So for example, we launched the on-demand transport service with the Toyota Mobility Foundation for healthcare workers, like I mentioned. And this is in Thailand and in Philippines. This is to provide safe and convenient transport for the frontline workers. And many of the corporates are also starting to look at how they can safely reopen. And a big headache for them is how do they get to their staff? How do they get their staff to the office safely? Right, that is one of their top priorities. Governments are also starting to relook at some of their past assumptions. So travel patterns have changed, and if this is more permanent, how do they adapt their current transport system and the plans that they have to the new normal, which potentially might mean lower ridership and lower fares. Right?
Great, thank you. So Vivek, you have been consulting for several transit agencies. What is the driver number one to the introduction of real-time passenger information systems? Could you explain it to agencies? Where shall they start, and what are the steps they should follow when starting with passenger information systems?
Okay, so the driver number one is obviously modal shift. You want to be able to move people from private modes of transport to public mode. That is probably the single most important requirement as far as public transport agencies are concerned. Because unless people move from private to public, the job is not done. So in order to be able to do that, there are several steps one would probably want to take. One is ensure that we have adequate digital channels created for different kind of users. As I said earlier also, there's no one size fits all. For example, something that's going to work in Singapore, where the tele density is 100% in terms of smartphone users, might not work in an Indian condition in that sense. So you might require multiple other channels to be invoked to ensure that passenger information system is delivered in the way is required by the people. So you might need to look at multiple things. One is look at on-station devices, which will provide information to people in their own language. See, again, a country like India, where we have like 30 plus official languages being spoken, state to state your language efficacy changes. So local languages are important. Give the content to people in the way they demand, and they can consume it. So user experience around information is the most important thing that one should keep in mind as to how that information should be delivered so that it is consumable and that results into consumption of the service. I think that's the most important thing when we deliver passenger information system. So you have on the vehicles, you could use different devices such as LED panels, announcement systems, and so on and so forth. On the stations, again, you have LED panels. You said a very efficient paper display that could go on the stations. On larger stations, you have multiple displays. You got mobile apps where you are providing this information on journey planners. Now, this is on the consumption side. What is also important that the whole information around the information that is being delivered to the passengers emanates from a central processor which delivers this information also to the planners and the service schedulers. And on the downstream, it goes to other agencies such as the first mile, last mile providers. I think there are multiple channels that are required. So what is more important is to identify what works for different kind of consumer and provide for that information at the relevant place.
Great, thank you, Vivek. Multiple channel approach is definitely a solution, and good point that you mentioned also this that it varies across different regions and also customer base. So actually, Radek, could you share what channels, talking about multiple channel approach, what channels are available in Prague currently, and is the information available real time across all of the channels? How you as an operator are related to passenger information systems?
We are providing our data, which means that our buses are connected to the central data warehouse for the PTA, Public Transport Authority, and there are system data for all the buses, all the means of transport, basically in a way of mobile application for also for the PC desktop, let's say, information. So they are in those standard way. Those are available. The important point might be for you is that the industry or the standard is not yet the ETA, like, but rather the current delay of the bus or other mean of transport, which means there are still room to improve the quality of the information.
Thank you, Radek. Yeah, there is always space for improvement. We all know that new technologies take some time for passengers to adapt. Vivek, what's your experience? How long does it take for public to get used to a new passenger information system, and what channels are relevant to the passengers?
I think, as I said, the key design parameter now is to ensure we have experiential information getting delivered as public information. If you really see, I'm sure Jared will agree with me that when you provide a mobile app to people, a new app, the focus is on how easily can people consume that service, how easily can people view the service, and how easily can they see the value adds. In general terms, it kind of, I would say, it again varies from city to city, varies from capability that the users carry. But any new system might kind of take a month or 2 to 3 for the whole of population to really understand how it's getting delivered, for what purpose, and how to consume that service. Different channels from the consumption perspective. Mobile, as I said, is probably taking the center stage today. But then you have web as one of those important channels, which is required in any case. But then you have physical channels such as the kiosks that could be put at common areas where people frequent. You have displays on the stations, such as the low power paper displays, LEDs. You could have bigger displays where monetization also becomes a source of revenue, and hence public information and the revenue source becomes a common channel. You could have newer channels such as, for example, if you're predicting travel for someone and then you predicted a common way of that person being able to use the transportation service, you could have a proactive PIS service being delivered to this person by giving specific passenger information to that person as a push message. Right. So there could be several such channels that could be relevant to passengers, depending on the profile of passengers.
Yeah, definitely. So, Gerald, what role does real-time passenger information play in on-demand services? How do you manage to timely link your services to public transit?
Yeah, so on-demand services usually don't operate on a fixed schedule. So real-time passenger information is critical, right? We've actually developed a lot of technology around routing and traffic models to do this very accurately. And of course, we find it's one of the hardest parts to do well. We of course are seeing more interest in journey planning, especially for multimodal trips, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the industry is kind of still figuring out how do we share this data between different services, especially those that do not operate on fixed schedules, right? These are the newer on-demand ones where there's two components. That there may be some kind of more static information, and then there's the real-time information, which has to be updated. So this part we are still kind of figuring out. For SWAT, we have not done any kind of deep integration at this point. But one thing we did do with the Land Transport Singapore, the Land Transport Authority in Singapore, was that we did integrate some sense into their fixed route network. So for our service, we would look up if for that journey we could actually get that passenger to his destination using a fixed route faster than what we could do, maybe due to capacity. We calculated the wait time and the journey time of ours. And if theirs was indeed shorter because there was a bus along coming, to that bus stop already, we would actually recommend them to take the fixed route rather than our service. So, we definitely starting to see more integrations happening as, a lot of the transport operators are starting to get this data available to us. And I think we're just going to see more of these things happening.
Yeah, accurate and reliable journey information is definitely important, and it also contributes to higher passenger satisfaction and improves the efficiency and thus lower costs of transit operations. So do you pay any special attention to accurate predictions of journey times? Does journey time accuracy affect your business in any way, Vivek? And if shall transit agencies assure high prediction accuracy of their journey times, Vivek, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think it's as I said earlier also, it is a very important area of intervention for us when we work with our clients in cities. Accuracy of see, let me give an example. If our headways are at 2 minutes peak time frequency, if I'm not able to accurately predict, we end up in Indian situation, particularly in bunching situation. We bunch vehicles and then we lose on productivity. So I think accurate predictions are very important, and in that sense, help us to deliver more efficient services. See, I think when you in the starting you said trust. Trust is simply defined to me. Trust is being able to do something in a highly predictable manner. Right. That is the trust for people. Like they know that if you're saying there is going to be a vehicle coming in 2 minutes, you will have a vehicle coming in 2 minutes. But if you're saying there's a delay of 3 minutes, you will see the delay exactly is 3 minutes. So I think that's something which is very important in going a long way, ensuring that the people stick with your traffic system and transportation system. It affects a business in a big way, because if people start trusting your journey times that you're providing, they will stick with you. See, I think people simply want to be safe, assured of their service. As long as you're able to do that, you have their attention all the time.
Great. So accurate passenger information is definitely worth trying in order to get more passengers on board. Gerald, what's your point of view?
Yeah, I agree with what Vivek said. The trust is definitely something important. And for on-demand services where there's no fixed schedule, you're just waiting by the side of the road, and if you have an experience where the vehicle didn't turn up, that's going to be something very terrible for you, and we may not be able to kind of convince you to try our service again, right? So, we have spent considerable effort to achieve the maximum accuracy that we can do possible. We had to build in-house technology to get this accuracy that we needed, because some of the solutions we see out there doesn't have that level that we need. And there are actually two parts to it. There's the prediction, what might happen in the future. So that's one where you can look at historic data, you can look at various data sources to kind of put that model together. Then the next piece is the actual real-time situation. These are things where a tree falls down, there's some traffic accident, and these are things that your system also has to kind of take into account. So it's quite hard to get these two things right. So for us, on-demand services, there's no fixed schedule, and we actually have to rely on this to actually make our system work, because there's a lot of snowball effect if we are not able to get this right. Even early is bad for us, right? Because we are trying to pull many people together, and these routes are dynamic. And if we're early to one stop, that's going to be a poor experience for the people who are waiting in the vehicle. They're going to be like, what's happening, right? So we also found that actually with more accurate information about ETAs, people are not so concerned about wait times. How long the vehicle is going to come, that becomes a bit secondary. They can plan around that. So if I know my vehicle is going to come in 10 minutes, I can continue to do some work at the office before I leave, or I have a drink. And that does not really compute in their heads as part of the overall journey. So that's also a nice thing. And of course, when we try to do multimodal planning, so these are the things where I'm doing first mile, last mile for a metro line. Being able to do that ETA very accurately will make that handoff, that transfer more seamless and just more pleasing to everyone, right?
Yeah, definitely. this accurate ETA information, as you said, it's also actually the output of our LIT predict. And as you said, we also do analyze and take into account historical data plus then real-time updates from multiple sources of data in order to provide really accurate information and help you also to link your services to on-demand travel. And Radek, what's your point of view actually? Shall transit agencies assure high prediction accuracy of their journey times?
Yes,
What's your stance?
they definitely shall. Yeah, because for instance, from our perspective, well, we are penalized for early arrivals, and also we have complaints for late arrivals. And it's all about at the end of the day about the realistic planning of schedules. So if we use the data properly, if we have this ETA proper calculation, and then we can optimize continuously also this planning, so we can improve the quality of the service and the passenger experience at the end of the day, which is basically in the interest of all us who are in this business, because the more the people are satisfied, then the more of the business we will have. So I think it's one of the key potentials which we need to improve on continuous basis. And definitely this is the responsibility of the transport agency.
Yeah, and more happy passengers will bring you only more happy passengers. Uh, so, Gerald, are on-demand services sustainable? What have you learned from the on-demand bus project that you developed with the LTA? Could you share some outcomes?
Sure, sure. But first off, to address the first question about sustainability, I think it's not so simple. Most public transport is subsidized, and very few actually make a profit. So the question today is more around, is on-demand services more cost effective than other forms of public transport, like fixed route and like rail? This is the point we are at. It's still very early days in terms of adoption and awareness, but we are seeing some deployments getting very close to being as cost effective as fixed routes, and these are the fixed bus routes. And there's definitely a lot more potential for it to far surpass that. And I think we're going to see that happening in the next few years as we improve. Firstly, it's a bit about network effects. So to touch a bit on Vivek's point about awareness and how do people adopt these new technologies. I think his estimation is about right, 1 month to 3 months. But we've been running some of these services for 6 months to a year, and still there are people who just didn't know that such a service exists. So it's indeed quite hard to reach out to the full population. So for the LTA project, we learned that awareness and service planning is extremely important for the success of these new services, and it was definitely a challenge for us to get it right. But we were able to achieve some of the goals that we set out to achieve, and these are shorter journey times. When we operated on-demand services, these vehicles didn't have to stop at every stop. We could take these more direct journeys. But unfortunately, the area that we operated in the central business district of Singapore, and there were a lot of one-way streets. And so we still had to, take a fairly long route to get, although we didn't have to stop at every bus stop, it was still quite long to kind of fetch them there. So, another important thing we learned is if the network was very flexible, these road networks, there are a lot of ways we can travel and get from point A to point B. On-demand services will be definitely able to find that more efficient route, right? The other thing we were able to show is, of course, lower mileage. So, these buses, they would just run at a fixed schedule. So when we replaced these scheduled services with on-demand, we saw that these buses would just wait at the terminal until bookings come in. and then they will drive. So we had a lot of less wastage in terms of empty buses driving around during the off-peak hours when there weren't many people traveling or for having the need to travel. So this was another thing that was a good outcome from our project.
Great, so exciting actually to see the new trends once you implement a new technology in a city. And Radek, are you planning any on-demand services in Czech Republic or Prague? Are fixed routes the past and on-demand the future? Would on-demand operations differ a lot from your current operations?
Actually, I am operating few buses in one of small cities in Czechia. It's like amendment of the standard intercity bus service. So it's for some routes where you have only a few people. They can call the shuttle bus basically on demand, which I think it's good solution for that sort of service. In Prague, at the moment, actually, we will operate what what assignment we will be able to get. At the moment, there are I don't know about any assignment in foreseeable future. So at the moment, I have no such a plan in Prague, but obviously in other cities or minor intensity systems, there are this it's more like niche part of the system where there is no much sense to send big bus on a regular basis. Then you can provide this on-demand bus, which is specific solution.
Yeah, it will be nice to see in the next year how also this intercity on-demand services will, for rural areas will evolve. And Vivek, how do we go from mass transit to mass, so mobility as a service? What role passenger information plays in this case? Do you think COVID will speed up future mobility initiatives?
Okay, so I think my take on mass transit to mobility as a service is that unless there is data and institutional integration, mobility as a service will remain largely on apps, not delivered as a purpose. So I think if we have to go from mass transit to mass as a mobility as a service, different service providers will need to interdepend on the data, which is real time, availability of the vehicles, type of vehicles, and also agree on a cooperative mechanism of sharing, which is very important. For example, one very important fundamental in mobility as a service is when you coexist, you co-create. So you are feeding passengers to each other, and hence those models will have to evolve in a sustainable manner. I think that's how. So data being the central to the whole real-time data being central to the whole mass opportunity. Passenger information system, again, I mean, it does play a very important role because if we are really looking at on-demand services, so demands being aligned, more than on-demand services and mobility as a service, demand needs to be aligned. So that means if you have three providers providing first mile, mid mile, and last mile, this is a demand of a particular user. This needs to be aligned. The alignment will happen through real-time information being shared between the three different systems and consumed seamlessly in a frictionless manner by the user. So I think that's how passenger information plays a pivotal role in delivering that frictionless service. Finally, your third question, which is what do you think about COVID-19? Will it speed up future mobility initiatives? For sure. See, COVID-19, as I believe, is essentially is going to bring back our discussion of resilience. That's how mobility initiatives will get speeded up, collaboration will happen. How do we build resilience, interdependence, bring a community approach in transportation systems, to say in that sense that different type of service providers in city provide for a sustainable, frictionless end-to-end service. And hence, in event of emergencies such as COVID-19, there is a collective response versus an individual response to a crisis. I think that's how the initiatives will change, and hence, real-time information availability and consumption becomes the most important activity in that case.
Great, thank you. And the last question for Gerald. Actually, with your vast experience in startups, Gerald has been in the startup world for the last 13 years. Where do you see potential for new opportunities using real-time passenger information?
So, startups are just set up to be agile, hopefully, and move fast. And so, when the COVID situation hit, my team has been on the ground, really looking at all these new opportunities and how the world's changing. So, it's a great time to be a startup, and I do feel there's going to be a lot of new opportunities as real-time passenger information improves. To Vivek's point, the data will get more accurate. Industries will get better at sharing it, and there's so much potential for the multimodal planning to happen. I really want to imagine that future where everyone will be able to find that perfect convenience to price point, that perfect journey I'm looking for as a commuter, right? I have access to all that information. That is really a dream for me. And another thing is about the efficiency gains. So I think this will be quite immense. If we are able to aggregate the demand, really, figure out where all the supply is, where all the demand is, and optimize, and get these things to move around more efficiently. Today you look on the road, how many vehicles are really fully optimized, right? The private, cars, your buses, your trucks. We're just not at the efficiency that we would like to be. So I do think this is a step in the right direction to solve some of these congestion problems that we already see in the mega cities in Asia. We're talking about Philippines, Bangkok, these places, Jakarta. It's just quite. I think if you haven't experienced the congestion there, it's something unbelievable. But this is the kind of problems of urbanization. I don't think it's going to stop. I mean, COVID's slowing us down, but we do see in the news a lot of activities picking up. We were discussing. It's going back to the normal. So I'm excited to see where this could go, because I do feel that some of the current trajectory that we're on is just not sustainable. And to Vivek's point, COVID is an opportunity for us to change. And I think some of these conversations are starting, and it's very exciting to be in this space at this time.
Yes, definitely. And accurate real-time passenger information will bring us to more sustainable and resilient future. So great, thank you. I think we got a great overview of the real-time passenger information landscape and beyond. And now let's take some questions from the audience. So to the panelists, regarding congestion information management, have you invested in traffic monitoring cameras and software systems where you collect information about congestions? Is there any way to manage about that congestion without traffic monitoring cameras, like messages from staff in the field or bus driver? Does anyone wants to go for it?
I can answer
Anyone
that.
have experience in congestion information management?
Yes, this is Vivek. Let me take that attempt to answer that question. See, traffic is part of the mobility solution for cities, and we as Smart Mobility Practice, we do work with several cities globally to provide traffic solutions. So there are different ways traffic congestion information is collated and then provided for actions purposes. So the few cities where we are working, where we have created a information to action framework, insights to action framework, where information is collated from different sensors uh, differently. For example, cameras could be used, radars could be used, GPS probe data from third-party sources could be used. For example, there are GPS probe data providers who provide a fairly accurate traffic situation. Now you could have a synthesized data coming in from there, or you could have raw data which you can extrapolate. So I think there are different ways of how you can actually collect data from traffic congestion perspective and then deliver it downstream for action purposes.
Okay, great. Have your real-time information solutions included information like number of passengers on board a given bus on the way to check if it's full or not, in case the bus has passenger counting cameras or provided by driver? Maybe Radek? Yeah, actually, I think it's for us. Yes, we do have solutions for automatic passenger counters that is processed then also in the backend and displayed
Yeah,
and
it's actually
disseminated
big.
to different channels. I think I mentioned it in the beginning. Radek, do you also have some experience in this
Yeah,
area?
I know that I have been part in a few discussion with PTA, so I know that they are looking for the solution. We have been also offering them some of ours. So it's something I hopefully will come, but at the moment I don't think it's solved. So this is the opportunity to to come with a proper solution.
Okay, definitely. So to Gerald, what are your views on demand for buses in Singapore, given Singapore has high density population and efficient public transport network where public buses are frequent during peak hour?
Yeah. So from my experience, on-demand bus probably is not a silver bullet, and different. The success I mentioned is about service planning, and it's very specific to the actual, down to the neighborhood you're deploying this service in. So what are the alternatives they have? What's the accessibility level to mobile phones? There's so many other factors that we have to consider. So I do think that where on-demand can play a part is looking at your whole public transport network. And there will be areas where connectivity is not so great, between these 2 points, and these more direct journeys can actually be fulfilled by on-demand. So uh, that's kind of where we are focused at today. So looking at the landscape of public transport and look at these areas or these neighborhoods, maybe they are more landed properties. So in terms of volume, they are lower. So on-demand transport can play a larger role there. So these are some of the things we're looking at.
So great. Thank you, Gerald. Do you believe the increased real-time information to be shown at stop station would imply a migration from traditional visual technologies like LED towards other technologies? Which one would you see as the winning technology in future? So Claudio asked that. What is the winning future piece technology? Do you have any?
I think it will be e-paper.
E-paper. E-paper and mobile, probably different kinds of mobile.
it depends.
Yes, so I think we will stop here. We will answer the rest of the questions after the webinar. We are a bit behind the schedule, actually a lot. And I would like to thank our amazing speakers and you, dear audience. It was a very, very pleasant journey. I hope we all got new ideas and strategies how to improve your current passenger information systems. To wrap up our digital journey, I put down 4 key takeaways that I find important. Accurate, reliable, real-time passenger information coupled with mobile applications will be crucial to gain back people's trust in the new normal. Then the second one, on-demand services have risen passengers' expectations, and also public transit will have to follow to keep the passengers to stick to the public transit. Then the third one would be adequate channels for users are required. So the multiple channel approach is required, but it differs between cities, and also there is a people-centric approach that is needed for different kinds of segments. And the fourth one, COVID will speed up mobility initiatives in order to make cities more resilient and sustainable. There were many more, and you could find them also in our blog, where all speakers of today's webinar will be featured. I would ask you to subscribe to our newsletter to get all the relevant materials directly to your mailbox. You can follow us on LinkedIn, and feel free to organize a demo with us. We have helped 45 plus transit companies with their digital transformation. I'm sure we can also reimagine your public transit together. Thank you for attending the webinar and have a wonderful day. Thank you once again to all the guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.